Hi everyone, it's Raina. So this video is for the full moon in Virgo, which is happening on March 1st or March 2nd, depending on where you live in the world. And I was just looking at some of the aspects that are going to be occurring at this full moon. And it's going to be, I think, pretty intense. We usually associate full moons with intensity, but there are a lot of hard aspects to Mars in this particular case. So given, and also there's some stuff happening with Neptune, given what we know about just people being on edge as it is, and then you factor in the full moon influence and then these aspects, this can lead to a lot of volatility. And so there's squares between the Sun and Mars, Moon and Mars, Mercury and Mars, and Venus and Mars. So this can play out in personal relationships where people are irritable, and that could start arguments and, you know, escalate very quickly. Because with any situation with Mercury to Mars, people can pop off at the mouth and just say things without thinking first, and that can lead to problems. Also, Mars is in a square with Neptune, so people acting out in a diluted state, maybe intoxication. This is going to happen on a weekday, thankfully. If this was like a Saturday night, I think it would be 10 times worse. But still, based on other events that hopefully it will be pretty quiet around the time of this or right before it, because you know, there could be, like, you know, hopefully nobody will set something up right before this so that people are already on edge and willing to act out something. In terms of some of the signs in these personal points, Sun 11 Pisces, Moon 11 Virgo, that could be a saving grace to have the Moon in Virgo because of the more practical, grounded, and constructive emotional response that Virgo has to offer. Mercury is in Pisces, so communication is in la-la land. And actually there's a conjunction between Mercury and Neptune, its own ruler. I mean, it's Mercury in Pisces conjunct Neptune. That'll be like very, very imaginative, but not necessarily very in touch with the 3D world. And Mars, Venus in Pisces, and Mars in Sagittarius. Now, Mars in Sagittarius, we think of that warrior energy, and that means that the quest for the truth is front and center in the driving force right now. And there has been so much unreality going on, even right now as I record this at the end of February, in the last week of February. A lot of, like, a school play happening. And, you know, it can really play tricks on your mind, whether you're hearing something in the news or even, like, time can seem like it's an illusion, and that's another story for another day about you know, time changing for us in terms of our perception of time. But it can be a very spiritual time for sure. It's just that there's a lot going on. Remember, we have different dimensions and different levels of consciousness. There are a lot of people out here who are really stuck in the third dimension. So they are, everything that they hear on the news is automatically fact to them, and they react to that. that news, whether, you know, and even if you just try to say to them, but how do you know that that's really real, that that's really true what they're saying? They could be like totally lying when they talk about polls, when they talk about who did what when. How do you know that that's really true? And they just cannot even fathom that somebody could be lying to them to promote an agenda. So what we have to do as individuals is not get caught up in it. And you know, even people who really feel like they know all, you know, what's going on, even that, not to get too caught up in it, because it is drama at the end of the day, regardless of where you stand. And you ask yourself, does it really improve my life, you know, to be immersed in this stuff or not? And I'm saying this as much for myself as anybody else. So I'm going to pick a few cards just to kind of give us some little nudges from the universe about what we can expect. And this is the Wild Unknown Tarot deck that I have used in the past recently. I'm picking it because it has kind of a goth you know, artistic rendering, and I think that's perfect for a full moon. I just have to learn how to read them, because I have made mistakes in the past. Oh yeah, now I haven't used them in a while, so I have to remember which is which. I think these are wands. They look like branches, but they're wands. Okay, there's one card. Actually surprised I picked that card, because that doesn't seem... This one I could totally see. Queen of Cups, Mother of Cups in this deck, but a lot of psychic activity, so I'll just say that right off the bat. And then, what was the last card I picked? The Moon. Not only the subject matter of what we're talking about, but also psychic activity. But also deception. So don't ever forget that angle. And then I'm going to pick a card from the Akashic Tarot deck. And then one from my Keepers of the Light Oracle cards. Seven of Roses, the Journey. And the Keepers of the Light. Let's see which person I get. Oh, interesting. Radha, Soul Flame. And you know, I mean, this could be good for personal relationships, because even though Venus and Mars form a square, because Pisces recognizes people on that soul level. So you have the Sun in conjunction with Neptune, as well as Mercury. So very heightened psychic activity, and there is an opposition between the Moon and Neptune, where you may be kind of going back and forth about the reality of what you feel versus what it is that you want. So and that may be where the conflict is between Venus and Mars as well, because it's like Venus is this aesthetic, you know, sort of ideal when it comes to love, that is kind of this pristine thing. Mars is more of the sexual nature, and that, you know, some people call it the lower nature. Mars is aggressive, Venus is very harmonious. So when these two forces clash, it creates a lot of conflict about, you know, is my relationship based on something that is actually more than just a physical, carnal influence, you know. And people sometimes are a little bit torn about that because they feel this sense of, you know, what is it that, does my relationship really matter? Is it really something that I can invest in the future? So anyway, let's look at these cards. And it's funny, I said it was kind of funny that I got this card because the Four of Wands is a card that's associated with, you know, marriage and happy home life and buying a new home and things like that. And this is happening, we're having a Mercury retrograde in the month of March, but later in the month. And so for anybody who is thinking of getting married, maybe you've just gotten married, and this is a perfect example. If you've just gotten married, it doesn't have to be within the last month, it could be in the last 6 months. And all of a sudden, things are starting to come into your awareness, the happiness that you have, because we have these two other cards. The Moon card can indicate addiction, deception towards self, even lying to self, the wheels falling off of the cart, you know. All of a sudden, what seems so promising is anything but. And even, let's say, forget about it within the aspect of relationship. You know, you buy a new house and you discover that there were some things you didn't realize about it that they kind of kept from you. The moon can be half-truths, and as I said, the moon can be addiction. So you are with somebody and, you know, you commit to somebody and you find out they have an addiction that you were not aware of, and that really is disillusioning. That's what I should have said about the moon in opposition to Neptune, is a sense of disillusionment that may have taken over your life in some way. For, you know, anything with the wands is this sense of like, wow, everything is positive. I'm going to make this foundation in my life. This is going to be this commitment. Maybe it's a job that you thought you were going to be able to have. It's a new, you know, a recent job. And you thought this was going to be the one that you could be at for many years. The middle card here, the Queen of Cups, is about your intuition. And this is a very feminine kind of an energy, very like this full moon is actually very feminine, earth and water elements. And there's a lot of it. But the idea of tuning into things at a deeper level, not just running away with your passions. The wands can be very impatient. So something may have happened in your life particularly that you just were so enthusiastic about it that you didn't pause to think if it was really, really viable. And now it may indicate that you were a little bit too premature in thinking everything was just hunky-dory. Now let's look at some of these oracle cards, or, well, this is considered a tarot card. I still need to read up on, you know, where they're coming at it from. They're saying that the Rider-Waite deck is not the definitive, the end-all be-all. But they don't, this deck doesn't even have 78 cards, so they're really going against the grain here. A teapot seems, this is the Journey, Seven of Roses. A seaport teems with activity as cargo is loaded off and onto many different ships. Two women on a small tender boat are on their way to the great ship that will take them on their journey. Two men with their trunks and cases wait to follow. This card shows a time for a journey, a move, or a relocation. You may be taking your work or creative endeavors in a whole new direction, whether figuratively to a new industry or literally to a new city. However this journey occurs, it is sure to take you to new places and greater opportunities. Although it may require leaving something safe behind, this is not the time for staying safe in the harbor. It's time for finding and exploring new worlds, so get packed. And of course, full moons can bring those transitional periods to our lives, and it, can be very creative influence as well. And people who feel that urge to create may say, what am I doing? I'm not doing my art, what I came here to do, and I'm just like kind of spinning my wheels. Okay, Radha, Soul Flame. Rediscover a lost part of yourself, experience relationship harmony and healing. Well, that kind of goes counter to what I just said. The Hindu god Radha is the divine feminine counterpart and twin flame of Krishna. She is considered to represent Shakti, the divine feminine and creative spirit of the universal life force. Without the female, the male cannot be created, and for this reason, Shakti is a powerful force that is honored and cherished. Radha is completely devoted to her partner and illustrates the age-old adage behind every powerful man is a powerful woman. She is dedicated to supporting all those who seek relationship harmony and healing. At one point, she learned what it was like to be separated from Krishna, and so she can also bring great healing to those who are suffering the loss of a partner or a separation. The extended message is loving union, connection, and relationship harmony are key at this time. It is important to remember, though, that relationships won't make you whole. Only your own love can do that. You now have opportunities to find lost parts of yourself, maybe sensual aspects or the capacity to cherish yourself. The relationships around you will then begin to reflect the love you have for yourself. Increased romance, love, and opportunities to express divine harmony through love are all becoming apparent in your life. You deserve divine love, and Radha, with her Shakti presence, is here to awaken this loving connection within you now. And, going back to Venus square Mars during this time, it's important to note that a square is something to be worked out. It's like a challenge, okay? So when I said it's challenging, I should have kind of framed it in a more positive way, because these kinds of conflicts can allow us to integrate that other thing. Now, I think usually that's associated with oppositions. I don't know if I'm correct about that. I'd say both can be. Usually with oppositions, you're talking about two extreme, polar opposites that need integration. They need to be maybe modified. Maybe the person is being too black and white in whatever it is that they're dealing with. In this case, it would be the emotional and the ideal, okay, with Neptune. But with a square, it's like they are butting heads. There's like this, neither one is giving into the other. And so for me, it's more about cooperation. So that's a form of integration where you can see the other person's point of view. So with Venus and Mars, understanding that Mars is not the bad guy. Venus likes to go along to get along, and that can create its own kinds of conflicts. So it could be that two people are dealing with a situation involving independence and will, which Mars represents. It doesn't just represent the sex drive, but, you know, your own sense of independence and your autonomy versus cooperation and harmony that Venus represents. And how do you integrate these two things without losing yourself and without also, and capitulating to another person, but also, by the same token, not trying to steamroll a person with your demands, and being able to ask for what you want but not demand what you want in a relationship. So anyway, one thing I wanted to just note before I go regarding soul flames and, I guess that's twin flame, right? Is they mentioned about separation, and I think that is such an important part of the twin flame thing without knowing next to nothing about it. I just sense that the idea of the separation is part of the grand scheme of things, and this is, what is part of their journey. However, I also think that some people are using a relationship that has too much turmoil and is constantly breaking up as proof of twin flames, and I don't think that's what they're going for. They're talking about separation, but it doesn't mean because the two people are not getting along. It could be that there are different forces that act to separate these people, but they always find a way back to one another. But if you're just constantly fighting with somebody and you just can't see eye to eye, that to me does not mean it's a twin flame. It could be just like a really bad relationship, toxic relationship. And I always say that when I talk about these twin flame cards and scenarios, because people, oh, I love my twin flame and all this. And it's like, well, he's with another woman, and so we're separated now, and he's living with her, but I know he still loves me. I know it. And all these things, and, with all this Pisces energy, including Venus and Pisces, sometimes that suffering in love, being long-suffering and deluded, creating alternative narratives for whatever's going on, that can only, sometimes that can just, create problems for you and delay you moving on and finding a dignified and healthy relationship. Okay, happy new moon in Virgo, you guys. Take care. Bye.